we'll be diving into things you should know about our changed new world. I'm Colin Day, Managing Director of EMEA, and you're listening to Octopost's original discussion series.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's podcast time. Welcome to Octopost's original podcast series, The Things You Should Know About Our Changed New World. I'm Colin Day, your host. I'm also the Managing Director for Octopost across EMEA and Asia Pacific, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to this podcast series a good friend of mine, Blickenstorfer, the CEO of INDEF Marketing Technology. He's the founder. He's also a lecturer at HWZ University of Applied Sciences in Zurich. So, welcome to the show. I've known you a number of years, but by way of introduction to our audience, let me just give a few little insights into you, the man. Right, you've worked in the marketing arena for over 23 years. You've still got a full head of hair. You really cannot have been in this field for that long. I'm just jealous. But most of your time was spent running the marketing team at PwC over in Zurich. You led that function for a number of years. You've also worked in a number of marketing agencies, obviously one of them that you run yourself now. Can you give the audience some insight into your career to date, the work you've done, the teams you've worked with, and what INDEF Marketing Technology is all about?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks, Colin, for having me here. It's a great pleasure, obviously. Marketing technology has been a passion for me for quite a while. You mentioned it. I have been for a long time of my career. I've been with PwC in the professional services business, and in the end, I've been the CMO of the team of about 30 people, and really helping them, to shape the marketing function. And before going over to the consultancy side myself, first with Blueprint in the UK, where obviously we met, and then founding my own company here back in Zurich. So, the marketing technology, I think, has been around for quite some years, but really in the last 6-7 years, it has really become a predominant factor and driver of how a marketing function is performed. And so when I invested heavily in marketing technology as a CMO, I really became, addicted almost to the possibilities and the potential around that. And so I decided to actually go much more deeper in that field, invest myself with passion into the field of marketing technology, which, as you all know, is ever growing. And I think most of the listeners, they know Scott Graphic, Super Graphic, of all the 8,000 tools now that are around. So there is endless room for playing around and developing new exciting use cases for the marketing people. So I'm still a marketeer at heart. I just really like to shape new use cases, new ideas, new ways of digitizing business models for our clients now. And this is really what we do at INDEF Marketing Technology. We help clients to embark this era of digital and find out new use cases, try new stuff, try new ways to customer engagement, which in the end is what it's all about, driving customer engagement in the engagement economy. So we help them. We work with numerous, technology. Obviously, we're kind of vendor agnostic. We're not focusing on one kind of technology, but really, helping our clients make best of their ecosystem, but also do implementation and technical work. But our focus is really on adoption, because many companies, and we work mainly with larger enterprises, they have an abundance of technology at hand, abundance of data at hand, but quite frequently, they're not really capitalizing on their investments. They're not making best use of A, technology, B, data, and C, skills and teams they have. So what I want to try, help them with my team, them to make really, best use of their possibilities at hand. And yeah, this is what I love to do. You mentioned it. I'm also a lecturer. Also, since this summer, also for the University of Lucerne, I have a totally new course there on marketing technology. So they just within the Institute of Business Management, they have started this new course which I lead on marketing technology. So it's also great to see a lot of young people becoming interested in that field and applying their knowledge from the tech side, but also from the business and marketing side, and combining that within the exciting field of marketing technology.
Gotcha. Thanks for that insight, Urs. So, look, technology, data, right? It's like comes out strong. It's like your talk there. It's like you mentioned Scott's graphic, right? It's like which gets bigger and bigger by the year, right? It's like which just shows how much choice the modern day marketer has, right? How has technology changed over the time since you started your marketing career? As if you went back to October 1997 when you first joined PwC, what would you see as some of the major milestones and major changes that have taken place in the field of marketing over that time?
Yeah, it's obviously I won't go through all of the history of digitization since '97, because obviously I would speak as long as the 8,000 list.
Well, back then, Scott's list would probably have one product on it, right? And now it's got over 8,000.
Yeah. I think he actually started the list only in 2010 or so. So this has been, a decade before that. So I think companies and CMOs, they have been digitizing since the 1990s. They're adding tools like CRMs, which was around already, quite for a long time. When I started in '97, I was actually then responsible for our, direct marketing database. This was, it was an address database, So, where we had all the postal addresses of the recipients of our printed material in a database. So this was actually the first kind of MarTech piece I was kind of confronted with and responsible for. And obviously we have come a long way since then. But mainly I think the biggest change is that, in the early days, it has been a transformation, but it was really more about operational efficiency, operational excellence, installing discipline around core transactions and back office processes. So this was a bit the focus, I would say, of the CRMs, trying to get more efficient, try to do more with less time. But I think the true digital transformation we see now is actually allowing, as a marketeer, this rapid business innovation and empowering people to really experiment, to release and constantly enhance new digital offerings. And I think this is where the new thing is. It's really the marketeers also influencing the product much more than we did in the past, where it was more about marketing communication and less about driving new business models. And I think here really CMOs can step up and take their seat at the strategy table. And today I think it's different. Today a true digital offering is actually kind of a confluence of a customer solution and a great experience. If all what you're doing is doing the same thing as you have always done before, but you just add a new customer app, no, you're not yet digital. I think the vision is really to come from integrating your customer and your customer relationships. And I think this is a big change. So it's really today marketing is defining what you do. It's defining how you engage with the customer. So I know you definitely have heard about, and there's been a lot written about, the Kodak moment, which was kind of the first shock, I think, where companies realized they missed the digitalization point. But I think today companies are confronted with the Uber moment, which is not only about missing digitization, which I think most of the people have now realized that they must engage here, but it's really about customer centricity. It's about making the customer your first and only focal point on how you want to drive your business and how you want to engage with the customer. And and this is where, so technology is not, it's not l'art pour l'art. It's really about how do I get closer to the customer? How do I learn from the customer what he really wants, and how can I drive constant engagement? And I think this is where the biggest challenge we see today.
Yeah, I think also adding to that, right? It's like putting the customer at the heart of things. Some of the roadblocks you've got to that today in in marketing functions in the B2B world specifically, right? Is you talk about data, but it's the silo of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the silos of data, and it's how do you go about breaking down some of those walls? Because in order to get that customer experience, that 360-degree view of the customer, if you will, data lives in different pockets, in the CRM, in the map, in the physical mail access database that you were talking about, if they still exist. But data is all over the enterprise. How do you, what are you seeing as some of the strategies for centralizing that data part?
Well, again, it's both. It's a question of technology, but it's more a question of a joint approach within the company, especially with enterprises. So just next week we will have a 2-day workshop with a big retailer here in Switzerland, and it will be all about defining the data strategy. The problem is not that data is not around. The true thing is really the data sits everywhere, and everyone is collecting data. And how do you make sure you're able to make sense of it? I think there are a couple of things you need to do first. I think it's creating a clear plan where you want to go with data and what you needed and what you need to get there, and also build a kind of a data maturity model. So see, you need to understand what do you actually want to use the data for, and where does the data currently sit? And for that reason, you really need to bring, I think this is the most important, is you need to bring all relevant parties together. So in these workshops, even though I like having small groups, but sometimes with enterprises, we have large people in the workshop, 18, 20 people, all that are somehow connected to data, and really bring them together and say, hey, what do we want to achieve with data? How do we actually know when we achieve what we want? So what's the return on our data in the end? And then trying to get them together, bring them and make them agree on a joint strategy. And I think, so many, actually, interestingly, even bigger companies, many of my clients, they actually don't have a data strategy. So they have a lot of data, they have a lot of people involved in data, but if I ask them, so what's your data strategy? Who's responsible for data acquisition? Who's responsible for data hygiene? Who's responsible for data maintenance and quality and data privacy and security? They might have the people, but all of the, they definitely have kind of a, someone who's responsible for data protection, chief, data protection officer, but he probably wouldn't have an agreed strategy with the marketeers on how customer data is actually used, and what are the gray zones, because this is a big problem. Is sometimes you don't have a strategy, you don't know what are your gray zones, because the law, especially in the compliance sector, it does regulate a lot of things, and I think we're probably grateful for everything that is regulated. The bigger problem is, the whole area that is not clearly regulated, and you have to find your own way on interpreting, the leeways around that and the gray zones. And for doing that, you have to bring the compliance people together, you have to bring the marketeers together, you need to include the CIO in terms of, the infrastructure. And so I really recommend to my clients to have, it doesn't need to be long, but to have a clear paper that regulates on how data is managed within a company.
Yeah, that's a great. That's a great recommendation. It's a great recommendation. The way I always view it as well is the winners are not going to be those that have got the most data, right? It's going to be the organisations that know how to interpret it, how to read it, and how to take insightful business decisions and business activities off the back of that data, right?
Yeah, I would add to that. And are able to execute on it. Because this is actually an interesting piece. A lot of companies, they have vast, they have a lot of tech. Again, they have Tableau or Domo or other platforms trying to consolidate all the data and even use artificial intelligence to find abnormalities and what do I know. But, when you have the information, then the next step is to apply knowledge out of all that information, to consolidate all the information into knowledge. But then you have to be able to execute on it.
Yep.
How do I do that? And this is where quite often is they would know what to do, but how are we going to operationalize that, and how are we going to do that, within a short time frame? I'm not speaking weeks, I'm speaking, real time, or at least near real time. So how do I optimize my campaigns? How do I optimize my outreach to my customers, in a very short term time frame? And this is where it really becomes tricky.
Gotcha. So, Urs, just thinking about those changes and the topic of today's podcast, things you need to know about the changed new world. With that in mind, it'd be great to get your thoughts and opinions on the state of marketing technology. How fit for purpose is it to meet today's challenges? And more specifically, how can firms demonstrate value? I mean, you spoke earlier on that people weren't really capitalizing on some of the technology investments that they'd made. So how can firms demonstrate value?
So it's actually two questions. So I go first on the kind of more generic question on, what's the state of marketing technology today, and where do I see the market going? I think, the vendors, the technology vendors, they have obviously seen there is a big need for new tech and for, developing new kind of use cases, and that's why there has been this enormous growth within the MarTech sector. I think only from 2019 to 2020 there has been a growth from roughly 6,000 to 8,000 applications. So it's a dramatic growth, and this growth comes from a certain demand. What I still struggle a bit sometimes is because I think that the value of a piece of technology is quite rarely within the specific functionality of a tool, of a platform, but it's its ability to be part of a bigger ecosystem, to be integrated with other technology. Because we hardly ever see a client with a total greenfield where you just go and take these Lego pieces and build your new MarTech stack, but you have a vast number of technology around, and every little new piece kind of needs to fit into that ecosystem. And here is probably where I would criticize especially some of the larger vendors. That they're still, even though they become bigger and also the ecosystem becomes bigger, I still see a lot of vendors that are too close still, or don't invest enough into making it open, with open APIs and really open interfaces to be able to connect it easier. But I think the industry has come quite far, but it's not yet there. So I remember in the past, like the past, like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, you're so old.
This has, in technology area.
Hey,
this is a long
3
time
years
ago.
in technology is a long time.
Yeah, it's a
Exactly,
long
right?
time.
Yeah.
So, we had to build a lot of, custom integrations, it has been very costly to do these integrations. You had to have, developers in-house or buy them, from tech agencies. And nowadays, this has become a bit easier, but I think, it can become much easier. So I hope actually that kind of, even though, we do integrations as well, but I actually hope that the market for integrations will go away, because it will just be all kind of plug and play. But we get there, and there has been tools like Zapier, you definitely know, which help, especially a lot of small, innovative, tech firms be able to access such a variety of other tools and build their own little ecosystem, which has made it, very attractive for them, and be able to be part of a bigger picture, even with little resources. So I think, big kudos to Zapier and some other Tray.io and other platforms that, helping to build these connected worlds. On the other side, and now I come to the second question from the marketeer, I think it has never been so easy to demonstrate value than today, and also the value of the technology, because you have such instantaneous feedback in many cases from your campaigns, from your tech. So you really learn quite quickly what is working on what not, what drives value, what drives engagement, what drives conversion if you sell online. So I think this helped the market, the CMOs quite a bit in explaining to their relevant stakeholders, what's the ROI on your investments. And also, I think what was helpful is that overall technology cost has gone down I would say per technology, not overall. You just have more technology. That's why probably overall spendings have been about the same. The CMOs still spend more on the large enterprises than the CIOs on tech, which is, amazing. Just recently, again, a study figured that out. So the marketeers, the CMOs, are the heavy spenders in technology. But I think it's more the amount of use cases that has increased, less the technology price as such. So I think the availability of data, the availability to measure return on marketing investment has given better transparency also what marketing does overall and what's the total return on your marketing activities. And I think this helps the marketeers, especially when it's around building budgets. And on the same hand, I think technology has been easier to adopt, less implementation time, less adoption time, even though you still need to invest in that. But, the technical piece has been less cost intensive. So this also allowed the marketeers to adapt more agile ways of implementing technology. Also, in the past, again, 3, 4, 5 years ago, if you come to an enterprise and say, hey, we'll do kind of trial and error on new technology implementation, you probably would have been looked at like kind of crazy. And nowadays, even with enterprises, this, trial and error, go for it, learn fast, quick, fail quickly. I think this has helped also to remove a bit the anxious around the technology and embark in such a big project. I remember like the first CRM project I was part of in PwC about 15, 20 years ago. It was like, for the first kind of version, we'll have a year to build it, a year, before you even get it, live. So, and this was kind of normal. And now, you start, you implement within a week or two, in many cases, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, you get the system live, you get first result, and then you optimize. And I think this helped a lot, and makes it just so much more fun, and you learn a lot more.
Technology is just the enabler, right? It isn't
Absolutely.
The be all to end all. What do you see as the minimum marketing technology stack required for the modern B2B marketing function? And you can't say all 8,000 in Scott's picture because that's just wrong, right?
Well, start with the customer. So definitely a CRM. I hardly ever see a company, not a B2B company, not having a CRM, not having a place where to register your client relationship targets and opportunities management. So if you sell in B2B, you need a CRM. Then next to them definitely would go with a marketing automation platform, because you just, you want to reach out to them. You want to be able to build nurture stream, to build and to automate, longer term nurture streams, which don't go only kind of one blast, but really helping you to develop longer term relationships, especially important in B2B. So that will definitely be my second. And then third, I would reach out to something social, something guys you do, gathering social engagement is crucial. So not, otherwise you're kind of bound to email or SMS. So, but tapping into the social world is becoming more and more important, especially on LinkedIn, obviously, B2B, across the world, all other networks have become kind of, almost can be neglected more or less. So I think, you need to focus on LinkedIn for building relationship, maybe with some Twitter and Facebook, but on the B2B, it's on LinkedIn. So being able to capture, real time the engagement of your customers on LinkedIn, and then linking that again with your CRM system to see, how are your clients reacting to your outreach, how is the total engagement developed of your major clients. I think this is crucial, especially, and this is where my heart currently is very much focusing on and developing with clients is building account-based marketing strategies. And in ABM, obviously you need to include the social channels, but you also need to include obviously the traditional channels, even the physical channels. So, but being able to drive engagement within your major accounts and do that on an automated basis, I think this is a thing that still, surprisingly, not many B2B companies do consistently well. A lot of B2B companies still focus a lot on, leads, developing leads and opportunities on a bit of a single-minded view, but don't see how do I develop one of the 10, 20 biggest customers consistently across all the networks, across all our channels. I think account-based marketing has still a way to go. I think technology is here. It's not a question of technology. Good technology is here. Just recently, Demandbase acquired Engager, which I think will be a very interesting. It's a very good move from Demandbase and Engager to go together. I really see. I expect a lot to come from their end. So technology is there also, but I think people and CMOs they really need to think about how do you roll this out across your company. And obviously here, even more crucial than in many other aspects as well, is the alignment of marketing and sales. And I think in B2B, this is the most crucial. If you speak about adoption of technology, you need to settle first, the alignment, get the alignment between marketing and sales right, because the sales guys, the key account manager, they have the account view, but they see that as their playing field. And here the marketeers need to come in and say, hey, we can actually help you guys building stronger account relationships by applying ABM measures. So this is definitely something I would hope more B2B companies have a bigger focus on.
Gotcha. Just changing tack slightly. It's like look, the marketing budget is always the first budget, or so it feels like, that comes under attack. Yeah, whenever we're in challenging times. You and I have both seen it as CMOs, I'm sure. What do you put that down to? And a second question would be, how could the CMO and marketing team help defend that by demonstrating value?
Well, it probably comes down to that still a lot of, C-suite person, CEOs, CFOs especially, they still see marketing primarily as a cost to the business. Also, how it's kind of related in the balance sheet, it's a cost. And I think so when you face harder times, you want to reduce cost, and then you go and see what are the biggest cost items, and then marketing is quite often top of the list. So the problem here is that you need to understand marketing, and the C-suite needs to understand that marketing is not a cost, but it's an investment into the client base, and actually reducing costs here means reducing revenues in the end. But hey, I've been a marketeer, I've been a CMO myself, and I was trying to explain that to the CEOs, and obviously when I speak to them, they would agree to me. Obviously, yes, we understand that. But then when it comes down to crunching the numbers, and we've seen that in COVID quite dramatically now with the COVID crisis. Obviously, a lot of marketing budgets have been cut because they just had to, because it's something you can. And this is sometimes you can cut it quite quickly. So it's also because, and obviously you don't want to cut maybe people too quickly. So so it's kind of a natural thing to do. However, I think more importantly than this kind of perception by the executives is how you can address that as a CMO, and how can you play within that field. So I've just had a good business meeting with a potential client of mine who wants to invest more into marketing automation. Quite a big client, and obviously said, budgets have all been cut, and he wouldn't know how to fund such a project. And I say, hey, you need to be creative on how do you plan your marketing budgets, and actually, especially when you're a company that has still a large spend on classic media, I think changing the marketing mix will allow you to actually free some funds and actually invest into technology without without increasing the overall budget. So I have many companies where I said, we can do this. We can implement a new marketing automation system. We can implement a new social system. We can increase your engagement, and we'll change your marketing mix, and you can actually decrease your budget at the same time. Just because you take away a lot of paid media, you focus on first-party data stronger than third-party data. And obviously some other media agencies, they don't like me doing that. But when I say, hey, focus on first-party media, focus on building strong first-party data and technology, being able to control your communication, so your overall marketing mix can become much cheaper with the same or even better results. So I think marketeers, in terms of crisis, they need to rethink their marketing mix. They need to rethink their balance between paid media, earned media, and own data. And I think this will help them to overcome some of the pressure here.
That's some great advice, Urs. Thank you very much. Hey, Urs, our time together is drawing to an end. But before we go, I've got a couple of last questions for you. This one's totally out of left field. Yeah. Tell our audience something about you that isn't on your LinkedIn profile.
On my LinkedIn, not on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, something about you, the man. You, Urs.
Well, two things. I think I have two traits that are both not there. Actually, I think they're on my Twitter, but not on my LinkedIn. So the one is I'm a very passionate chess player. I still play a lot of chess. I love the game. It's a perfect combination of strategy and intuition and passion, because I'm not sharp enough to do everything with logic. So I need to have a good intuition on the best next move, and also quite often I have to trust my intuition more than my logic. But I'm doing quite okay. So this is one. And the other one is photography. Love to do photography. Love to go out into the nature. Obviously, being a Swiss guy, we have some nice sceneries to photograph.
Yeah.
Some on the mountains, so go up the mountains. This is something I do love. Take pictures of landscapes, but also about abstract pieces and people stuff. And next to them, I'm trying to get off some weight still, do some regular running. My 10K a week is kind of the minimum I do. So those are probably things you won't see on my LinkedIn account.
So it must be something about marketers and salespeople, because you are the second guest, on my podcast series that has said they are an avid chess player. So we'll have to look back in the archives and hook the pair of you up. And we'll get a challenge going. I'm sure we can sort that one out. Look, before we go, where can people find out more about you on social media? You mentioned LinkedIn and Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
It's Urs Blick. We probably have to link in somewhere. It's URSBLICK. Twitter is fine. Even though, my favorite network definitely is LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm on all the other as well as a marketeer, but favorite one is LinkedIn, and which you'll find me, Urs Blickenstorfer. There's only a second guy in the world who's called that, and he has less hair than I am.
It's
so
always
almost
always good to be original, or almost original, almost unique. Hey, Urs, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining the conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, Urs Blickenstorfer.
Hey, thanks a lot, Colin. It was great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Urs.